Two. Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Good. Welcome to day 2 of our workshop. Firstly, let me just take a second to apologize. We are running a few minutes behind schedule, but hopefully it will be smooth sailing from here on. So yes, thank you first and foremost for a wonderful day 1 of the workshop. I think everyone will agree with me that yesterday was exceptional. So yeah, we're just gonna keep momentum and get started with our day 2. So for our first session, we have a presentation from the botany department here at Mandela. And our presenters today are Molemi Rawane, Asi Pendoto, and Ayabulela Binase, all from the botany department. So without any further delays, I will hand over to them for their presentation on bean crop research and food security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Actually, I'm not going to be the one doing the presentation, but my students will be doing the presentation. My name is Molemi Rawane. I'm just going to introduce our research and what they will be sharing with us. We are, like the Chairperson has already introduced, from the botany department, and we will share with you just the project that both of them will be working on bean research, which actually is part of the contribution, that little contribution to alleviating poverty or addressing 2 of the main SDGs, which is SDG 2 and SDG 13, one climate action, and the other will be on food security. We are mostly doing work in the lab, but we have to work with the people in the outside, because you can't have anything in the lab without the integration or working with the people in the outside. So they are going to introduce us to what beans are and nutrition, and how we can combat or how we can actually identify and be able to show how we can basically convert or produce or develop some beans that can be able to withstand environmental conditions. So I'm gonna give the floor to my students, that they will share, and after that I'll just do the wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. My name is Asipe. I'm a PhD candidate at NMU. Today we'll be presenting our project that we'll be doing from next year onwards. It's titled The Viral Dynamics of Common Beans in South Africa. I'll be working with Aya and also co-supervisor Dr. Mbewe. All right. So the common bean is a species of legume native in America. It is widely cultivated globally due to its value of nutrition, and it plays a big role in our economy because it's quite affordable. These beans, they thrive in warm areas and in temperate climate with well-drained soil. There are different types of beans, namely the kidney bean, which is shaped like a bean, shaped like a kidney, and it's quite large. And then the other one, it is the black bean, that is small. And the last one that I'll be talking about is the pinto bean, that we all know that is common in the Ngqusho, and it's well known for its soft texture when it's cooked. Okay, so the common bean the common bean are a staple food in many countries because of their nutritional value. Not only about the nutritional value, but they also have other values such as food security, because they are quite affordable and they are accessible to everybody. Their nutritional value ranges from protein to amino acids to minerals such as magnesium and iron. They also have economic value because they provide income into small households and to big households, like even big farms, they also can farm them. They also play a very crucial role in the environment because they do nitrogen fixation. So these beans have all those values. Even though they've got all these values, they are often faced with many challenges, ranging from pests to high temperatures, climate change, and virus that we're going to be focusing on. So the common virus, the common pest that normally affects beans are beetles. They feed on them and then they eat the leaves, affecting their quality. And then also high temperatures, the pods not form properly, so it affects also the quality of the bean. And then the viruses, the leaves go yellow or they just die, they wilt because of the virus. So all these challenges that they face, they affect the production and the yield, the quality of the plant, and then it affects the economy in general. So linking this problem to our study, we aim to characterize and establish evolutionary dynamics of these viruses in South Africa. And then we've got the objectives that differ. For the PhD student, which is me, I'll be measuring the prevalence and also doing some molecular epidemiology, whereas Aya will be evaluating the farmers' knowledge on the virus and how it affects them. And then all this thing, we're going to be linking it to the evolutionary tree, the phylogenetic tree at the end. So these are the methods that we're going to be using when we're conducting the study. So we are aiming to sample at 3 provinces that are known to produce beans in South Africa, which is Limpopo, Free State, and Northwest. At these sites, we're going to go to the field and we're going to interview the farmers about the viruses they have, and then we're going to have, so we have a standard survey that we're going to be asking them. And then while we're at the farm, we're also going to be collecting leaf samples. From these leaf samples, we're going to be extracting RNA and DNA. This RNA and DNA is going to be used to identify which virus we have. And later on, we're going to be using molecular tools such as PCRs. The PCR will tell us it's going to generate, and then we're going to have a phylogenetic tree. So the tree is to show the origin of the virus and then try to link it how it got to South Africa if it's not from South Africa. And then that's when we're going to have the final picture of the evolutionary tree. So from this study, we are hoping to have the distribution of the virus in general, and also identify the key pathogens that we have in South Africa that are a problem, that are common in our farms. And then we are also hoping to get the genetic variation discovery. All this information, we are hoping to give it back to the community and the management so that they can know which virus is a problem and how it can be managed. I'll hand over to my colleague, Aya.
Thank you, Asipe. I would like to give thanks also to the chairperson who was conducting this event. It is a grateful platform for us scientists to actually communicate about how we try to look in the social problems and how do we conduct our research. Moving on to the talk. What's in front of you are the rich green fields of common bean growing crops. This legume plant is plays a major role in global food security. So looking at the challenges, focusing on the challenges that affect common bean plants, we will be looking at the viral pathogens. As many as they are, we will be focusing on the two major viruses, the BCMV and the BCMNV viruses that threaten global food security. So how do we begin to discuss how these viruses affect common bean plants? So we'll start with where they originate and the history of BCMV and the BCMNV, which traces back to 1917 when all strains of these viruses were considered to be pathogenically identical. This means that when these viruses affect common bean fields, they show similar symptoms. We can't, when you're going to the field, we can't identify that, okay, this tree is affected by this virus. You can only see similar symptoms, and then when we take those leaf samples, as my colleague said that we will be collecting leaf samples, we take them to the lab where we tend to detect those types of viruses, the specific type of viruses that affect the common beans, specifically in the region of South Africa. So in 1930, BCMV was first identified in the United States of America and was quickly recognized as a serious threat to bean crops. Hence, the reported cases in Tanzania and Kenya followed in 1936. So they were showing common bean mosaic disease symptoms in the bean crop yields. Now imagine a farmer watches their green fields of bean crops weakening and showing the symptoms that are observed in common bean fields. Like the picture that is represented here, we have a picture A, which shows the clearing of the leaf veins in the affected common bean plants. And in picture B, the affected leaves, they show the yellow mottling, which indicates the iron deficiency, as my colleague has mentioned, that the common bean plants have ions and magnesiums, those micronutrients that tend to be important when we consume beans. So when looking at G and H, they show the leaf necrosis. And when looking at picture I, it shows the mosaic pattern. This symptom causes the yellow patches that lead to leaf deformation. Why this happens, this means that when the infected bean crops, they lead to yield losses for the farmers. Did you know that these viruses are transmitted transmitted by the tiny aphids? Aphids are the insects that are attracted to younger, tender, fast-growing plant parts that are rich in nitrogen. As my colleague has mentioned, that common bean plants have an ability to fix nitrogen, whereby it takes up the nitrogen in the air and it converts it to compounds that are useful for the plants to photosynthesize to make up their own food. Oh, they also transmitted through infected seeds. So they also transmitted through infected seeds. So this is a very significant transmission, whereby now if a farmer tends to buy seeds that are infected with these kind of viruses, then it will tend to introduce the viruses in the new areas where they are not being affected with these with these viruses. So the transmission of those viruses, they can be spread through seedborne and aphids. And in terms of production quantities of beans grown globally, this map indicates that India is the highest producer of bean crops, followed by Brazil and United States. Those are shaded in color green. And then Africa tends to be the third country that produces common bean plants, which ranges at 50,000 tons and 100,000 tons. Hence, it is also recognized as the country that contributes in producing common beans. However, looking at the Southern African selected countries, Malawi, when we look at the highlight that is shaded in blue, Malawi is the highest producer of the common beans, followed by Mozambique, and South Africa tends to come in third place in producing common bean plants, and the lowest country that produces common beans is Zimbabwe. So this highlights that the production of beans in South Africa still continues to increase, because now it is, when we're looking at the Southern African countries, it tends to be in the third place. So South Africa produces dry beans. So we've spoken of bean crops, and now we're speaking about dry beans. So beans have different types. So we have many types of beans. So they are commonly known as common beans, and then the dry seeds, they are called dry beans. So South Africa mainly produces different types and different bean varieties of dry beans. So this chart indicates that the highest producer in our South African provinces is Limpopo, followed by Free State, and Northwest, Mpumalanga, and the rest of the other provinces follow. So when we look at the pie chart, we can see that KZN has the low. Okay, we can see that Western Cape and Eastern Cape tend to not produce any type of dry beans because they're sitting at 0%. This can be because of there are no bean varieties that are suitable for the region to grow because of the climate and the weather and the drastic weather patterns that the region is experiencing. As we can recall on the weather patterns that we've been experiencing in the previous months, that we here in Eastern Cape we're experiencing floods, and that can be one of the things that affect the production of beans. Okay, I'm not clicking. Okay, looking at the production of dry beans versus the consumption of dry beans in South Africa. So South Africa produces approximately around 70,000 tons annually, while consumption averages around 114,000 tons. So this indicates that production meets only 61% of the demand. So, however, more of the production than it is needed, because now if we can have a production that meets only 61% of the demands, that means it doesn't meet the need of the people who actually consume beans. For instance, on the chart we have seen that Eastern Cape is at 0%, whereas when you're looking at the traditional meals that South Africa recognizes as the South African cuisine meals, Eastern Cape specializes in making food that is called umngqosho, as my colleague has mentioned. It is a mix of samp and beans. So ngomngqosho. So in other tribes, it's given another name. I know in Zulu it is called istampu. So if Eastern Cape has its favorite meal as umngqosho, but cannot be able to produce the beans, that becomes a problem in the region. So we have to try to find ways into finding ways into. Okay, I will elaborate more when I go on. So the reasons we want to increase the production, as I've mentioned, it is because of the high importance of the beans consumed on our daily basis in South Africa. So you can imagine an experience of having the best dishes made with beans. So we can make salads. We can make salads, fresh salads, soup, and umngqosho with this type of bean. So bean is a very healthy ingredient in our daily consumption. So in vegan and vegetarian diets, it is considered as the high protein source of food. And then when we make those traditional meals, umngqosho, so this meal is a very important meal in our back at home, because it has the ability to make you full for the longest time, and it can make you stay energized. So it was also implemented in the school programs, whereby in the school feeding schemes, they included this meal as the meal that should be in the diet of the children, because it seems to have greater influence in making them full for the longest time, so that they stay alert and attentive in class. Because you find that in rural areas, we don't have accessibility to those kinds of food. So you find that in so many households, even though it's claimed that children have to have 1 to 4 meals a day, you'll find that in a household, children can have 1 to 2 meals a day. So now this was implemented in school to actually increase the attendance of the children in school, so that they know that if they go to school, they will get a meal, so it won't be an issue of, okay, I can't go to school because I'm hungry. So this was a great input. So how do we increase the production to meet the local needs? So just as science have helped us to understand these viruses, their transmission, and how they are distributed, it has also equipped us with tools to assist in increasing bean crop production by using advanced molecular tools in mitigating the impact of BCMV and BCMNV. So they act as a warning system that allows rapid and accurate detection of these viral diseases. So early detection is very important. It is a key that allows the implementation of control measures before the spread of the viruses. So scientists not only have worked on those diagnostic approaches, they have worked tirelessly to breed new varieties of beans that are resistant to these viruses. So now you can imagine a farmer you can imagine a future whereby farmers are able to plant seeds with confidence, knowing that their seeds can be resistant into those viral diseases. So, however, alone, we cannot assist food insecurity. So due to the rising threat of climate change, which cannot be ignored due to the role that it plays in a significant difficulty in managing viral diseases. So when those climate change influences the difficulty in managing those viral diseases due to the rising temperature and unpredictable weather patterns. So making it essential to adapt those diagnostic approaches and promote resilience and in farm practices. So, and also supporting vulnerable farmers. So how do we support those farmers through sharing the knowledge in the development and adoption of those disease management strategies and try to combine them with various control measures that, such as biological control and host resistance that can contribute to the sustainability of bean production while minimizing use of harmful chemical inputs. Because when the farmers use chemical inputs like herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers, they tend to use them incorrect because of the instructions that are not delivered to them correctly. And then now when those are applied in the soil, they can make the soil, they can, what? Yeah, pollute the soil. Hey, English is not for us. So, so in closing, implications of viral pathogens on food security. It is a story of challenges, but however, it is also a story of resilience. Resilience in farming practices, innovation whereby we tend now to use those advanced technologies in our advantage into detecting those viruses. And it also gives us hope that, okay, we will then in the future have those greener fields again. So by working together and using science and other collaborations like this, we can ensure that humble being continues to nourish for generations. So addressing those challenges in every form of communication, and I say in every form of communication because as we are going to conduct this research as the master's and the PhD student will be writing journal articles, and we know not everyone reads those journal articles, so we need to actually use the linguistic science into helping us into communicating those outcomes in a way that it will reach or land in the farmers and to our grandparents. So by doing this, we build a future where food security is a reality. Oh, thank you. Where's my slide? Okay.
Thank you very much, Aya. And I'm just going to try and wrap up what they have presented. I know that where you are sitting, you are actually asking yourselves, how is this study related to sustainability literacies? So actually here it involves or integrates the three aspects, which are learning, research, and engagement. So in terms of research, the study basically aims at addressing, like I've said, the SDG 2 and SDG 13, which is climate action and zero hunger. Because of climate, we have evolving diseases that are caused by viruses. But for us to be able to do that, there has to be some sort of engagement, of which we have to go out, talk to the farmers, interview them, talk to the communities. We don't only go to farmers or commercial, so we do commercial farmers, we do subsistent farmers, and we also talk to the people who are growing common bean in their backyards or so forth, just for food. So we check with them. So we have to have that engagement. And when I also included learning is when we go, we talk to farmers, we do our research, and we come back and we say, this is what we found. This is what we think we can advise you in terms of growing your common bean going forward. We also learn from these farmers. We also learn from these communities because they've been doing this in practice for some over 30 years. I was still a baby by then. So they've been doing this. I can't come in and say, you have viruses, I think you must cull this cultivar, it's not working for you. And they tell you, hey, when I'm growing this, it actually gives me a good produce out of it, even though it may be affected. So we learn from each other. So it's a two-way street, whereby we learn from them and they learn from us. So that's how we are integrating this. And just in closing, I just want to say, we know that in South Africa, basically 3 out of the 5 households, they have beans in their meal. So it is important to have crops like this and promote them. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you. I think, guys, let's give them another round of applause. This is... Thank you so much, guys, for the important work that you do. I mean, it's like I always say, I sound like a broken record because I learn something new every day. Imagine 61% of the demand being met. It's a real problem, especially given the fact that beans are very prominent in South Africa. So thank you so much for those thought-provoking inputs. And now I'm just going to give over to the floor, and then we'll take a couple of rounds of questions. I know we were running a few minutes late, but I think we can take 2 rounds of questions or comments at this point. So I'll take hands. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so we can start with Amy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It was really interesting. My question is, in the beginning of your slides, you mentioned you are planning to make recommendations to management, like that's one of the outcomes or outputs. So I just want to hear how you plan on doing that. I think Maura alluded to it yesterday, and I've also heard it in some settings where people will experience the university coming in, doing the surveys, doing the interviews, and then once the paper's published, they never hear from them again. And I don't think you'll do that at all, so I'm just curious to hear how you plan on sharing that in a way that's not just a link to a 100-page master's thesis, but how you plan on packaging it. Because I'm already thinking, ooh, could we connect you to some of our students in the humanities? Could we connect you with videography and design students? So yeah, I would just be curious to hear how you plan on packaging that in a way that's helpful and useful for the people it's meant to serve. Yeah.
Thanks, Amy. So I think we'll take all 4 questions and then we'll give them a chance to respond. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the Botany Department for the presentation. But, my question is, I know that you're... oh, this is the doctor with the pink t-shirt. She's... Okay. I know the doctor did mention at the end, right at the end, so you partially answered my question. But I wanted to know how your study and the indigenous knowledge systems of the farmers are going to be intertwined, because some of us have or had grandparents, uncles, aunties, or someone we knew in the communities who farmed on a smaller scale because they did not have the scientific terms or ways, but they had the knowledge of the farming. So we have that almost indigenous knowledge when it comes to farming and how to take care of viruses like BM, CV. I learned some things out today. And BC, M, and V. So they don't have those scientific terms, the Latin terms, the fancy terms, but they know it and they know how to deal with it. So I just want to know, how do you integrate and intertwine the indigenous knowledge systems of crop farming specifically, and the scientific botanical definitions? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. It was quite an eye-opening. As I'm sitting and listening, the objectives are quite a bit clear. We want to increase the reproduction of beans. But now, I hear that Eastern Cape is 0% production in terms of beans, and it's related to weather conditions. But now my question to you is, how far are you going to take the research in terms of finding a solutions that will be able to create some sort of a greenhouses that accommodates the weather conditions to be able to grow beans in the Eastern Cape regions? Because I believe it's quite important that we in South Africa, we export more than to import in the country in order to change the economy. Thank you. I'm not quite sure if my question was loud and clear.
Okay, morning colleagues. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was very insightful. My question is also on the bean production in Eastern Cape. You mentioned in your statistic presentation that Eastern Cape is on 0%. Since umngqusho is part of the cultural food in Eastern Cape, I wanted to know, in your research, how far did you go back in getting that 0%? Was there a point in any time that Eastern Cape did produce beans, or have they always been importing beans from other provinces?
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation. And it is really actually is an expression of science and society in practice, because most of the time this science that happens in those, you do the field work. You also, as you were mentioning, you meet with the people actually who uses or utilizes these actually crops. But the issue for me, which I found quite fascinating, is that when you talk legumes, and you did touch on it, the whole importance of them being able to fix their own nitrogen. And nitrogen fixation, therefore, does play a very, very critical role and a crucial role in how perhaps we could look at alternatives. If you're talking about what you were mentioning, the challenges to the dry bean that you were mentioning. So my question then is, shouldn't we perhaps also be looking at the importance of examining other inputs, like your fertilizer, but also your resistant crops, that could, in a way, alleviate, what you have identified. But also linked to that is when one talks about, particularly this particular province, the issue of poverty is endemic. And we have a possible solution here. And the question then becomes, how do we then leverage a bean production such that at a house level, your supervisor talked about backyards. How do we then leverage that? Remember, we used to have cooperatives, etc., and Eastern Cape was leading decades ago around this. And the question is, surely universities, there's 4 here, and all, the last time I checked, I think you have all botany departments. And I'm thinking in terms of how do we scale it up and ensure that also there is entrepreneurship that is inbuilt within this exercise, beyond actually the study itself, so that we could be able to address what you have identified as very low, because I refuse to believe that there might be zero production of dry beans in the Eastern Cape. In my previous life, my small household, we used to actually do these things. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, colleagues. I'll give you guys a chance to respond. You can go in any order.
Okay, I'm going to answer Amy. As you know, this project involves different stakeholders. So we are the science side, and we're going to go back to the community because we went to interview them first, so we'll have their knowledge, and then once we have our knowledge, we're going back to the community. We're going to inform them about that, but not only just going back to the community. We don't necessarily, like I was attending a workshop last week about turning your PhD, your master's, into an article that's in the Herald, or there's also an online platform. What was that platform in it?
The Conversation.
The Conversation, where you can take your study and convert it into something that everyone can read, and it's online, everyone can access it. It's like you can turn your scientific terms into simple, like she was also mentioning BMVs, and you don't know those BMVs, so there's a simple term that we can use that everybody can understand. So that's how we're going to go back to the community and inform them about what, so it's not only about getting the information from them and just walking away, but we are planning on using these platforms. There's also papers like Herald, so yeah, we are planning on having articles that are going to be accessible to everybody, and also have some forums that we're going to come back and sit down with the farmers and say, this is what we found, this is the common problem in this area, because I'm sure areas are going to differ. So this is the common problem that you guys have in this area, and this is what has been done in China to prevent this thing. This has been done there, and this one's been. So we're going to go back and give them the information so that they can also benefit from this. So there is going to be an engagement with them afterwards, not just tell them, okay, you guys have a problem and leave it like that. I hope I answered you. Okay. Is there another question? Yes, anyone else can go.
Adding on what Asipe has mentioned, I did mention on my presentation that communication is a key in actually spreading this knowledge of research, whereby we will be using different faculties like linguistic sciences and try to communicate with them how our research goes about, and then they try to put it in more like writing policy brief statements that will work hand in hand with the frameworks that are being, the policy frameworks that are being used in the agricultural industries, so that they can be able to inform farmers, because those are the departments that have the data sets, the database of the farmers that we have in our country, South African country. So writing those policy brief statements can be actually useful as well. And then attending to, the last question, how do we, yeah? How do we, yes, how do we help with the solutions in growing, or because he has mentioned that Eastern Cape was used to be the place, the region that produces more of those kind of plants. I think because of urbanization, whereby we have more towns now, we have buildings, so now the farmlands are decreasing. So due to those instances, we tend to not focus more on having farms, and then we are having those climate changes and those weather patterns that seem to be drastic to actually control. And our homes, they don't have also the backyard gardens, and we can enforce urban farming in the like those vertical farming, whereby we introduce planting in hydroponics. Those are practices that you use water in order to grow food. So we can use those types of integrated farming practices in order to actually increase our production here in Eastern Cape, or also intentionally do those trainings, go to the areas whereby, most specifically in the rural areas, because they own big lands on their backyards. So we can go there and do trainings on how do they actually integrate their planting practices, whereby, because common bean is very important. It's a very important plant, especially in crop rotation, because you can use it to actually increase the soil fertility, whereby you plant different crops in a given area, so that you include bean plants, while planting also different types of plants, so that your soil can increase its fertility. So we can also introduce those things that can be effective in a way that it can increase production, because and also examining those fertilizers. Those fertilizers can also give us a direction in a way that we understand how do those viruses get into our regions and try to disrupt the bean production. So it was reported in this pie chart that Eastern Cape was sitting at 0%. This can be due to because now beans tend to be a commercial product. So here in Eastern Cape, we don't have. I wouldn't say, I stand to be corrected in this. We don't have so many commercial bean crop growing farmers. So because now we have subsistence farming that also are struggling in growing those beans because of the climate changes. So we tend to be concluded in producing less beans because of those factors. Because Mpumalanga and Northwest are recognized as the highest producers because there you can find commercial farmers growing beans, and then you can find small-scale farmers that also grow beans. And this is due to the selecting a suitable cultivar that will be able to produce more in your region. So in Eastern Cape, I think we need to also try to find those varieties that can be suitable in growing in those conditions and in those weather conditions that we are experiencing here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aya. Just to add on, I think it's for question number 4, the lady who actually was asking, how did we get to 0%? So basically, this is the statistics that comes from the FAO. Normally, we measure that by measuring about maybe a ton, which is 100 kg. So basically, you'd find that Eastern Cape is still growing common bean, but they are not reaching a specific amount for it to be recorded. It doesn't mean Eastern Cape is 0, it doesn't grow common bean at all. Yeah, so I'm gonna go to the lady who spoke about IKS, and I think question 0.5, I'm just gonna combine it because it's almost similar. So in terms of the IKS, we have what we call the farmers' day forums and so forth, whereby we actually go to the farmers, we talk to them, we ask them questions, and sometimes we even come up with our own names for those who do not know English. They can't know BCMV, they can't know, so we talk about that disease, we give it a name based on the symptoms. That one that shows that there is a lining on the leaves and so forth in their language most of the times, because we need to have people that understand the language or have to know the language, or the people that we're working with. So that's how we normally integrate the two. And like I said, the forums, that's where we sit, we talk all about that. There's also what we call the Farmers' Day, and sometimes we organize workshops, depending on the money, of course. Yes, we organize workshops where we sit with them, we buy food, we teach them. The extension officers are also included, and the people around the area. So that's how we transfer the information. And in terms of the climate changes, as well as what the last speaker was saying about resistance and so forth, our role basically, because we are molecular biologists, is actually going there where we talk about the resistance. So from all the study, after doing all this, we'll be having information that can lead us to what we call the production of genetically modified organisms. So what happens is that with all this information, there will be genes that will be transferred to all the cultivars that we think that they're producing more. And if the gene that is transferred is actually helping the plant to be resistant to the environment in the Eastern Cape, then we will transfer that gene and we will test that crop in Eastern Cape. If it's about the coldness, because they need warm or whatever, and we need a gene that can make it stand that coldness, that is what basically leads to introducing the gene, making sure that the cultivar can be able to grow here in the Eastern Cape, even under the conditions that that crop cannot grow under. And then we can have the production, and then after the release, that's when we can then give it to everybody or release it and say, let's plant this common bean or let's plant this plant in Eastern Cape because it will survive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I also have one question from our online audience. Michaela is asking, what sort of environmental sustainability practices do you practice in this sort of project, and how do you balance the economic, social, and environmental dimensions of this problem?
Thank you. I don't know what you said her name, their name was. I think that is basically almost similar to what I've just said, because this integrates three things: learning, research, and engagement. But in terms of the social, people are, common bean is grown for food. So basically when one is starting to do a research on a food crop, it is a social matter. Yeah, nobody can run away from that. So we know that once we talk food, we're talking about something that can connect the people and the social. So we are basically addressing a social issue. So it's like basically what we call ourselves is we are the doctors of the plants, just like the GP is to the human beings. So we make sure that we have a plant that is good and can give us a produce that will help the people and help the food security as well as adapt to climate that is changing. Thank you.
Okay. No, wonderful. Thank you so much, colleagues. I think all our questions have been addressed. I do have 5 minutes left since we started the session a bit late. So I don't know if anyone in the audience has a comment or a question. I see a hand right there in the back. So I think we can take 1 or 2 comments before we wrap up the session. Thank you.
Mandibulise nam, ndiyabulela ke bantu belapha phakathi kwale mfundiso ilolu hlobo. Ndiyacinga into yokubana ipolitiki nayo idlale indima yayo ekusibulaleni apha kweli phondo. Ngoba sasikade sine irrigation schemes endingayaziyo ukuba zaphela njani, abantu belima, abantu besitya behlutha. Ngelishwa ke khange kubekho nxibelelwano phakathi kukarhulumente kunye neuniversity. Efothe kukho indawo phaya yokulima kodwa idike kulanjiwe. eTranskei kwakukho iuniversity kulanjiwe. I-Eastern Cape inawo umhlaba. Abantwana bethu abenza i-agriculture bayenza encwadini kodwa akulinywa kwizikolo abakuzo. Andiyazi ke kuba xana sithetha ngolu hlobo abantwana abenza i-agriculture kwi-high school zethu banxibelelana njani neziko elifana neli likaMandela ukwenzela into yobana thina abantu bangafundanga bangayanga esikolweni siyichole kubantwana bethu. Ngaphezulu i-university lena iye yavula inyoba apha kwisebane ekuthiwa yi-engagement office. Ndayigqibela kudala mna into ekuthiwa yi-agricultural show ekuthiwa abantu bonke abakulo mcimbi bayahlangana. Ndithi ke mna kubalulekile into yokubana xa sibheka phambili siyazi into yokubana siqala apha ebantwaneni ukwenzela abantwana babafundise abazali ngoba ngoku akusalinywa ngoku. Into eyenzekayo zonke ifarmers nezilwanyana apha elento kweli phondo lethu. So ke kubalulekile into yokubana sibambane ngezandla sisebenzisaneni. Enkosi.
Okay. I'll try to translate the best I can. So Utata, what he's saying is that politics have played a big role in the demise of crop production in the Eastern Cape. Because he's saying in the past, there were things such as irrigation schemes where the people grew their own food. And such schemes, you can't find those anymore, and you can't really get a proper explanation as to what happened. Utata also pointed out that there is little to no working together between the universities and the government in the Eastern Cape, because the Eastern Cape has quite a number of universities, and he feels like if there were more, if the universities and the government worked together more to address this problem, that we would actually get somewhere. Utata also pointed out that things such as agricultural studies in high school. So he wanted to know how can the learners in high school get involved with university programs that address such social ills, because this can lead to a transfer of knowledge from the youngsters to the older people who don't have access to this type of things. And yeah, so it's just imploring all of us to work together to address these social ills, because no one body or no one institution can address all of the social ills. So universities, the government, high schools, and all of these NGOs, if we all work together, we can address these ills. I think I've captured what you said. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any last words, but I think we can wrap up this session. Doc, any last words?
Okay. My last word is that I thought the guy that I saw here yesterday that talked about some hydroponics would be here, but basically, Dr. Damon, what the intention is in future is actually to go out to the communities, and if we have, for example, give them seeds. Actually, is a matter of trying to get people to have gardens whereby they can grow their food, especially after one gentleman from Zweden explained that a lot of people are hungry. So we can start from there so that people don't have to go out there because they're hungry. If there's gardens, if there's something that they are planting and so forth, it will be a better start for everybody. So just that, thank you.
Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much, guys.
Will be joining us on our visit to Pretoria, and so we welcome our specialists into the food systems program with Amy, so we make sense together as well. So thanks so much.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. So we will go into tea. We're going to take tea for about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back in. Thank you, guys.